So placement, with the exception of eyes and lips, does not vary from the small stage. So cheeks, temple, jaw, everything is placed the same. The little round shadow on the chin, all highlights and shadows are placed in the same way. Eyes and lips being the exception. Because we want to draw attention and essentially exaggerate the eye mask and the mouth so that we can see you from a distance. But placement of everything else is the same. Color everywhere will intensify. We're talking about a much more powerful stage light and many more of them. So we're going to darken the color significantly, and you'll see me do that. If I were really smart, I would have had her just leave all her makeup on, but I did not.
I kind of did just put foundation over it. So.
Perfect. Great. It's there for me. So we're going to intensify all the color. The trick to large stage is that the makeup is going to be visible from the front row. The people who, at least on Broadway now, are paying the premium price seats, you know, it's going to be visible even under powerful stage light. So the key is it needs to be beautiful. Blending at edges needs to be really lovely, so never there's big chunks of color, but there are shadowed and shaded areas that blend beautifully outward. So that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to exaggerate the eyes and lips, as I said, and we're going to blend those edges. So, in many cases, it's going to be the same set of colors that you used, probably with the exception being the eyes. Even for men, we're going to sort of darken that shadow. So, again, you use the same technique that we use for small stage, but it's good to review these things in case there's anything that you may have misunderstood that I didn't catch on small stage. So you want to layer that in there. Remember, on the cheek, you're right up under that cheekbone. And you can turn toward them so they can see that. Longest in the center, the deepest hollow. Be sure to get all the way to the hairline, and then narrowed again toward the apple of the cheek. Kind of have to blend that in. Now, as you can see, I'm doing a more intense color, and I'm kind of building it, because you want the intensity of the shadow to be strongest where the hollow is deepest, that is to say the center, and softer at top and at edges. So pat a path. Now, with a shadow that strong, it looks right now like a big chunk of color on her face. You can really see the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Q-tip, and I'm going to roll it along, and turn toward these guys so you can see. I'm going to roll it along all of the edges, just back and forth, rolling across those edges, not to remove color so much as to soften it so it doesn't look so obvious. See how that makes a difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just more forgiving. And then a little bit over the top as well. Again, you want like a nice sort of sharp-ish edge, but with this much color, you don't want it to be the darkest at that upper edge, or it's going to look chunky. That's why I sort of centered the deepest color right here in the center of the shadow. Kept this edge sharp but soft. To the other side. And something that came up both last week and for many of you still today is watch the angle of this shadow. The idea of the shadow is to bring attention not just to your cheekbones, but to draw attention up to your eyes. And if this is too deep, or if it's at too extreme an angle, all I'm going to see is this section of your cheek. It's not going to bring my attention up to your eyes. So a little darker in the middle. And then always check and make sure with the changes in the weather that are happening, many of you are going to experience some dryness. The makeup is generally
non-comedogenic and non-acnogenic unless you get really dry, and then all that pigment gets sucked into your pores. I'm just gonna check some of that. Great. And it can cause breakouts. Of course, that's true of anything. That's true of anything you're going to put on your face when the skin is really dry, whether moisturizer or any kind of treatments or serums. The best thing to do is to exfoliate. If you're really dry, you can use a kind of a delicate exfoliant every day. If it's just I'm a little patchy here around the wherever in little spots in the face, every couple of days. There are different products. I personally don't like a beaded scrub. They make my skin kind of like, they do exfoliate, but they leave the edges kind of ragged, so it feels more dry than when I started. I like kind of a chemical exfoliant. You can get these without paying a lot of money for it. Look for products that contain lactic acid or salicylic acid. The acids will kind of exfoliate away the top layer of skin. You may need to experiment a little bit with how often to do it. If you tend to be sensitive, every couple of days is plenty sufficient. There are very fancy products out there that do it, but you certainly don't need to get fancy. But it does really, smooth skin really does make the makeup look its best, and you. So just doing the temples, remember you really want to be sort of sharp but soft. And again, I'm sort of starting with the layer of color that we had for small stage and kind of building. If you get too much on the brush at once, it's just going to glop up and be hard to blend, and you want really soft blending. Not quite symmetrical. And again, especially soften up those edges. I'm even kind of drawing the temples toward that hairline a little bit just to keep them really, really, really soft. The same thing applies that men will want to go strongest on temples and jaw, women strongest on cheekbones. That is, unless you're playing an androgynous character, you're playing someone of the opposite gender, or of the opposite cisgender, I should say. If you have trouble seeing the jaw shadow, see what I'm doing is instead of starting at the top and trying to find a downward, I start at the bottom of the shadow and brush up till I encounter resistance. And if anything, ladies can afford to be sort of deeper with the jaw relative to other spots than you can for small stage. I'm probably hitting this jaw as hard with color as I would for the cheekbone. From a distance, a nice sharp jawline doesn't so much masculinize the face as it does slim it. But again, you can get the deepest sort of color in the center, in the longest area. Does that look even side to side?
Mm-hmm. Looks like on the left side it's like a little lower.
Yes,
Maybe
it
because
does.
I'm on the left.
Thanks. Yeah. And that's great. I mean, a lot of you are struggling right now with like, I can't see the jaw, I can't see the jaw. Unless it's a one-person show, you got someone to the left or right of you, right? Like, we're not ever doing things that are exam-wise in here because where you have to know it all yourself, because that is never going to be the situation that you're in. We still want to be careful about the nose. We don't want it to be the first thing that our attention is drawn toward. And remember, we should not even really see the nose shadow from anywhere but the sides of the face. A nice sharp line that is straight down the center. A little isosceles triangle. And a nice sharp line on the other side. Sorry.
You're fine.
See what I've done? This is what you want to check from the front. I'm a little off. Can you see that essentially I've made her nose look a little bit crooked? Like,
Yeah.
so just check for that. Turn toward me. Okay. So it needs to kind of come in on this side on the top a little bit. It needs to come in on this side on the bottom a little bit. Great, much better. Now, for large stage, you can take this shadow a little bit higher than the bridge of the nose, just to elongate this section. Close, please. I'm not going to poke you in the eye, but I don't want you to feel like I'm going to. So you can take it all the way up to just above the center of the eyeline. Now, so I've chatted about this with a couple of you. Now's a good time to sort of talk about noses and the ability to sort of change the shape of our features. So what I've done is I've come very near to the bridge of her nose and created just that narrow little space that is the spot where her nose sort of comes most forward and faces most center. If I wanted to make her nose look narrower, which I don't, she has a very narrow nose, guesses as to what I would do?
Go more in. Bring it in.
Exactly. If you want to make your nose look narrower, just start that center line closer to the bridge. If you want to make it look wider, pull out a little bit, and that's when it's okay to get a little bit of the shadow on your cheek, because it will make your nose look wider. You want to make your nose look longer. You can take the shadow past the nostril closer down to the edge. You want to make the nose look shorter. Don't go all the way to the nostril. Also, to make the nose look shorter, which we can do just a little bit just to show you, is see where the perceived tip of her nose is? It's really distinct. If I were to do just, this is going to tickle a tiny bit, a shadow that comes a little bit higher than where it is naturally. See what that does? This is what the Kardashians do all day long. They're recontouring the shapes of their faces. So you can manipulate, using the shadow, you can manipulate the length and width of the nose. You want to be soft about it, right? So it's just something we don't really notice she's done. But the overall impact will be to make the nose look shorter. It's a great thing to do if you don't like the shape of your nose. Of course, who likes the shape of their nose? Do not raise your hand if it's you, I would be jealous. But it's also to do if you know, let's say you're playing brothers with somebody, and you have, or siblings, brothers and sisters, and you have different shaped faces. You might want to say, okay, you know, like Eddie and Brianna have very different noses, but how can we, you know, in terms of eye shape, in terms of nose, how can we bring our shapes a little closer together? So one could widen, one could narrow. You can create the illusion of a little bit more like roundness. Let's say if someone with a very pointed nose wants to mimic kind of the little like button bulb I've got, you could kind of bring the shadow up a little bit. Okay, you can do a lot with just a little bit of shadow to reshape all over the nose. Yeah, you want to take a very careful hand so you don't see the makeup. Let's put in this guy. So remember, this is a half moon facing down away from the lip toward the chin. We can go a little stronger with it, and I'm just essentially using the brush to blend it this time. Men, if you did not do the philtrum, because it creates a little voluptuousness for small stage, do it for large stage. I just take the width of my brush and I tap it right into that little space. For large stage is a great place to do any kind of soft forehead contouring. So let's say if we want to emphasize that on Sarah, there's this great sort of beautiful, elegant dome here on the forehead. Great, we would just leave it. But there are also little indentations that kind of draw attention to the brow arch. We can go ahead and with vertical strokes kind of color those in a little bit. The shapes are going to be different on all of you. And in fact, men will be probably more likely to have a strong divot here in the center that goes across. You want to be careful with whatever shape you create that it doesn't connect with the temple shadow. Any shadow that sort of touches another shadow just erases the believability of either. So again, you can hardly see it, and I'm less pat-a-pathing than I'm kind of smoothing it and smudging it because you want it to be soft, and shape doesn't have to be super precise. But it's just one more way of kind of drawing attention to the unique contours of the face. And the more you can sort of pick a few spots to do that, the forehead's great for that. The more you'll look like a real person instead of just sort of a flattened, two-dimensional kind of moon face. So a little bit of that contouring is great. What I also like to do, so again, if you have just sort of a flat or domed forehead, leave it. But a great way to draw attention to the dome too, and I'd like everybody to kind of try this, is just a little bit of shadowing. It starts vertical at the hairline, but it kind of moves its way outward. Sort of the shapes of the lines I'm drawing are, so imagine this is her hairline. It starts vertical, but then I kind of start moving it this way. It's just a good way of creating a little bit more of that three-dimensionality into the face. And make sure that it is symmetrical side to side, or it'll make the face look a little lopsided. See what that does? Just brings your focus a little bit more toward the center. Chalk on my. You can also sort of softly color in some of the contours that develop as we age. So for example, not at this age, right? But you know, I do have a little bit of a shadow here and a little bit of a shadow here. If I'm trying to play younger than I am, or I want to look my absolute most beautiful, am I going to color those in? No. But, you know, if I'm playing, you know, I'm 37, if I'm playing someone's mom at the walnut, a little bit of shadowing into those natural contours that are there and are mine is really useful. So for you guys, avoid it for now. Like, avoid coloring this or this. Or what's the new one that's kind of coming? Like, yeah, any kind of softness around the jaw. But those shadows are there, and they help our faces look more believably us instead of kind of mask-like. Which, you know, the downside of the foundation is it can kind of create that a little bit of unreality. Great. Nice forehead. Eyes. Okay, this is where we part company a little bit with the small stage. For ladies, it's still going to be the blended curve. But if you've been using the character shadow, and this is true of any except for the very, very lightest skin tones, I want you to add in a little bit of this deeper shadow that comes in the cream color wheel. So this is what? Cinnamon cream color, this darker brown. Essentially, we're going to create a more dramatic eye, and we're really going to exaggerate the shape. For men, you're essentially going to do, for large stage, the small stage eye. You're going to do a blended curve that's just above the natural crease. Ladies, I'm going to take it even far more above still. So essentially, men will be doing the lady's eye for the small stage, for the large stage. What I tend to do to start is kind of mix them, because I can always go darker. And I just mix them one into the other. You want to get enough onto the brush that you can kind of sustain a line all the way across, but so that it doesn't get goopy. I'm going to start in the center just so I don't end up with too much color at the narrowest spot here in the middle of the eye. Okay, close please. Now Sarah has a very well-defined crease, and so I'm essentially going just above it. I'm starting in the center, and I'm coming inward and outward. Now when I get, and stay closed at least this eye for a second, when I get out here to the outer sort of third of her eye, instead of pulling the blended curve back down around the eye shape, I'm going to kind of wing it out and make this whole eye area essentially look, instead of this wide, this wide. So I'm just going to bring it okay, stay close. So remember the blended curve, get a nice thick line on there, wipe clean, and reshape the brush so you get a nice flat area to blend from. Blend toward the arch from center. And then outward from outside the arch. Great, you can open it. Now you'll want to brow out to match it. So from here, it looks a little crazy, right? But what we want to do is we want to be really careful and really precise. Keep that sharp line at the bottom. Blend it really, really pretty so that the people paying the $195 for, you know, row A still see it as looking beautiful, right? If you were to go to the doorway and squint, that's how it's going to look for most people. And essentially, it's just going to help us see her eyes. So close. So I'm just going to lay this on here and kind of, without moving the paper, rub my finger across it just to take up any excess that I may have gotten there. Symmetry here is very, very important. Okay. So for folks with sort of medium skin tones or people who find that the character shadow doesn't have a ton of contrast with their skin tone, you'll definitely want to err on the side of this deeper color. So men, the technique for you is the same, you're just not exaggerating so much above the crease of the eye or pulling it out so far. Because, true or not, the sort of biological cliches that women have sort of larger eyes than men do. Turn it out toward me a little bit and close. Stay closed. Now, especially as you start winging it out, it's really important that you match that other side. And before I blend, I'm going to check it. How'd I do? Now I may find that I've gotten more color on one side or the other, and so it's not going to blend as pretty, in which case I have to go and do another layer on the lighter side. Close, please. Mm-hmm. Not quite as strong. Yeah, if you blend one side and realize it's not as deep as the other, when you go to put more color in, do it right on the edge, and that will give you the most impact. And I kind of use the corner of my brush when I do that. It gives me a lot of precision. It doesn't lay much color at once, but it helps me get it right where I want it. Because the last thing I want to do is ruin this nice straight line I've built.
Not bad.
Must be. There we go. Great. So, see what it does though to our eyeliner? If you squint at her too, it doesn't look so crazy. It just looks bigger. Great. So I think that's it for her shadow. Am I missing anything? Right. So stronger everywhere. Really soft edges. For many of you, except for the people who we found have a real contrast between your highlight color and your foundation color. Anyone who I'm like, ooh, your highlight is looking a little stripy, you want to be a little careful with highlight. For anyone else, it's going to be really hard to do too much. So you want to do it here at the edges of the temples. It's okay to be kind of visible because it's really going to draw attention to those spots we want to brighten. And again, where you do highlight on the forehead depends on the shape. Since I've done these little crevices here, I'm going to do under them, drawing attention to the brow arch. It's not a bad idea for everyone, even if you don't have a little divot here, to do a little edge here above the brow arch. Draws attention to our eyes. For those who are so inclined, if you're careful with it, it's not a bad just part of your evening makeup look. You want a nice wide area of highlight above the shadow on the cheekbone of about 3/4 of an inch. And again, you want them to nearly touch, but never blend together. Otherwise they get muddy and you lose that nice sharp shape you've put in. Same on the jaw. How am I doing on time?
It's 5:32.
Great. And on the jaw, it is again a rectangular shape right across the edge of the jaw, of nearly an inch, a little bit wider than you would. Oops. On the cheekbone. And again, horizontal down the nose. If you are lengthening the nose, just take the highlight to where you want the new length to end. A nice oval shape here on the chin. And if men, in an attempt to sort of keep it more masculine. You avoided the chin before. Do both the shadow and the highlight on the chin here too. You can do a tiny little shadow, or highlight rather, coming off of the philtrum. Highlight, 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 highlight. Okay, and the eyes. Close, please. Go ahead and paint highlight in a pretty intense layer from the lash line all the way to the new crease you have created. Bring that all the way in. I like to bring the highlight all the way into past the center of the eye because it opens up that little area there. And if your eyelid moves around a lot, you can press a little bit more lightly and then also sort of pull it a little bit taut so you can get all the way up to that new crease without touching it, ruining it. And you want to bring it out to the new perceived eye edge to kind of a point. I'm going to keep the edge of that soft. Stay closed for a second. And this is something you definitely want to press. I'm going to touch it with paper towel. You want to press any excess off. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and powder it. Now I have a very light matte eyeshadow, so that's what I'm going to use. But a little bit of your loose powder in your hand works as well. Stay close. Press that in there all the way to the edge. And out. While I'm at it, you can take the edge of your larger of the two brushes, or if you have a small bristle brush that's precise, I'm going to press some deep shadow into that edge as well. It's pretty forgiving, and this is maybe the only spot where you could use something that has a little bit of iridescence. We're not talking like chunky glitter color, but a little bit of iridescence is fine. I could use any one of these colors for slightly different effects. I could use this one to really deepen it. I could use this that will come out about the same. I could use to bring out a coppery color of it. I could use this just to kind of set it without adding much color. I could use anything in the Naked palette. What I'm going to go with, it's too complicated for you. I'm going to go with this one just to see what happens. So I'm going to have a little bristle brush that has some precision in it. And I'm essentially close and just press it into.
Is that dark horse?
Hmm?
Is that dark horse? The color?
Oh, I don't know. Snake bite. So what that does is set it and help it. By Act 1, you're going to get a little bit of like cross-fading, liney stuff that you'll have to clean up at intermission, right? I could also go in with a slightly lighter color, even with the same brush, and sort of hit it near the top. This is with some precision where you can play around with a few different layers of color. Do that on the other side. Now, colored eyeshadows really don't read for stage work. It's, for my money, best to mimic sort of colors that are closest to the shadows created by our skin tones. That said, if you were in a show where the look wasn't pretty, but it was kind of outrageous, Probably what I would do is I would do halfway in with a contour color, and the outer half a version of these deeper to lighter colors in whatever color we want, whether it's violet or blue or whatever it is. For just sort of pretty ingenue, I would keep it sort of in this world of neutrals. Because from a distance where all I can see are her eyes, shadow color is not going to read. Just the fact that she has eyes is what's going to read. I'm going to go ahead and do here and a little bit of highlight in that teeny space under the brow bone. I'm going to go back into the highlight on this side. So it's kind of a round shape, a little bit like a jelly bean upside down that goes in the crevice here. A little bit of a round shape. Men should do that as well. All it does is widen the perceived size of the eye and brighten it. You want to get enough highlight in here so that it's visible, but not so much that you can't blend it away to a sort of a streak-free finish. Sorry. Can I do this side? Right. I'm going to take her brow to match it. The dark brown brow pencil is best for this. What I'm also going to do, she has strong eyebrows, but I'm still going to sort of draw them in a little bit all throughout. Chances are pretty good that if you're doing makeup for a large stage, it's about a 50-50 shot you're going to be wigged, right? So what you want to do is, wigs tend to create, even really good wigs, tend to create a stronger color base than our own natural hair. So for example, Charlotte's wig that many of you saw her wear in Arcadia last week is sort of the same shade as her hair color. But the heft of a wig, the thickness, wigs tend to be thicker than natural hair, it adds up to seeming darker and heavier. So we want to sort of bring the brows to match in that world. Bringing attention to the center of the brow is a really good idea. So I kind of color in at center, and then little hair-like strokes with the direction of hair growth that are soft to the outside. And then I draw the brow out so that it is past the new...
Wait, who was wigged in Arcadia?
Charlotte Northeast. Lady Crew. In all the gowns. And hair piled up.
Totally didn't realize that.
It's a good wig.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's a good wig. And then Thomasina was wigged in scene 7. Her hair grows, you guys. It's top of show, it's at her shoulders.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And then it comes out, scene 7, it's longer.
Oh yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
How old is that actress?
Yes.
17.
Any other guesses? People who saw it?
I'm gonna guess older.
like 23.
I didn't see it, but
23.
She's 23.
Really?
She was
That's really
great.
strange.
She's great.
That's weird.
She's teeny tiny.
Yeah, she is.
It was so believable. Like,
Yeah,
it
I
was
was-
ridiculous.
I would have thought she was like.
But she was just so good. I was
14.
like, she can't be like.
Yeah, that's the
that
only reason
young.
why I thought she was older.
Yeah, I was like, she can't be.
What
Otherwise,
age
I
did
would
she
go.
play?
13.
Oh my god.
I was like, she can't be that young.
I mean, she looked 13.
Wow.
She did.
So something else that I did is instead of just like wispy lines right at the edge to draw it further, I thickened the edges of Sarah's brow where they end, so it's not like long stringy, long stringy, long stringy. So from about here out, I started coming from the top, thickening, so that I widened so I can bring it to a point further out. Yeah. Okay. Now for the fun. Welcome to the wonderful world of eyeliner, people who've not lived there before. If you have access to a like a marker liner, these are good for that. Your pencil certainly will do if it's sharp. I'm going to use the pencil just to be fair because that's what you have in your kit. If you are very adept with gel liner, gel is also great. It holds so great on stage. All right, you want a very, very sharp pencil. A few times in, you have no chance of getting a decent line. So do buy yourself a pencil. So what we are going to do is we are going to exaggerate the perceived opening of the eye. Because here's we've made the whole section bigger. And we want to keep that up with the liner. So this is the eye. Now, so for small stage, we did liner right across the top edge of the eye. Men, you are still going to do that. I want men to do a thin edge of liner all the way across the edge of the eye and exaggerate it out just a little bit. And men, I want you to, about 1/8 of an inch under the lower lash line, just under the iris, a little bit of liner here too. Okay? But with women, what we want to do is, so let's say that's the bottom edge of the eye. We're essentially going to, we're going to keep the eye from closing off. And this is a trick that in your daily lives, if you are a smudgy eyeliner person, avoiding closing it off at the edges will make your eyes look longer. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a thick line that instead of coming all the way back down, comes out. And we're going to exaggerate the eye width on the bottom by never coming fully to the lash line except at the center. So let's say this is your lash line. We're going to come out. We're going to stay with the lash line, and we're going to kind of come back up, and we're going to come out. So they don't match. They don't come together.
What time is it now?
5:47.
5:40. Seriously?
Yeah.
No! I made Jeremy put makeup on for no reason. It's not. All right. Just enough time to do this then. All right. So if you've never worked with the eyeliner before, these are a little fussy. Warming them up in your fingers will help you get a smoother line. Some of you will find that just straight drawing a line is easier. Other of you will find that sort of doing the line little stroke by stroke is easier. It's whatever's easier for you. So I'm going to come past the center opening of her eye. For me, I take tiny little strokes and kind of wiggle it into the bottom of the lashes. And then when I'm almost to the outer edge of the eye here, I'm going to take this line away from the edge and up. Letting the liner get a little thinner as I get out to the edge. Open. So then on the bottom, and she has a little sort of leftover liner from earlier, so you won't be able to see it as clearly. Open, but look up at the ceiling. Don't come all the way in, but using just the tip of the pencil. Now, you don't want to tilt it down, just out. If you go down, it's going to make the eyes look droopy. So it looks really intense, but squint at her. All you see, right, is a giant eye, right? So that's the effect that we want. Really draws attention up to the eyes. Now lips, I'm just going to do this very quickly. I'm going to pick a bold color. Red for you. Men will want to use the lip liner, draw in the shape of your lips with the lip pencil, and then color it in. Then from there we can decide if you need more color or not. Women definitely apply lip color with a brush so that you can get more precise lines. And what we are going to do, now Sarah has very voluptuous mouth. It's awesome. But even for Sarah, we're going to exaggerate the size of the lips. Just at the center, just coming to the edge of where the sort of lip turns to skin. And then bring it back to the natural edge at the edges. Otherwise it'll look clowny. If coloring in with pencil first helps you to do that, ladies, go ahead and do that. For me, I just like to use the lip brush. I can either really soften or sharpen her lip shape. I'm going to make her look crazy by doing one of each. Doing this will help you get a little bit outside the natural lip shape at the top as well. So just at the center bottom and just at the Cupid's bow, come a little bit outside that natural lip shape. So again, right, in order to understand the things you say on stage, we need to see your eyes, we need to see your mouth. So we're just going to exaggerate those things a little bit. And sharp edges will help you do that. Yeah?
I have a question about the eyes.
Mhm.
What if you already have giant eyeballs?
So much more the better.
Okay,
People in
I was
double
gonna say,
L
do
are
you
going to
need
be
not
like,
do that? Like, should I not do that?
everyone
Or is
should
it-
do
okay.
this. Yeah, because we're talking about mezzanine. You know, we're talking about things that are happening at the elevators. We're going to have audience
I
looking
just
at
didn't know
you.
if it would be just
Yeah.
absurd.
No, for everybody.
Okay.
And the best thing to do is before you start, like, wipe off any eyeliner you have so we'll be able to see sort of the work you've done. So feel free to take a picture of her. Thanks for putting that up on the web.